India's 20th century industrialization relied on a simple geological advantage: bulk minerals sitting close to the surface. The shallow bedrock of the Chota Nagpur Plateau provided easy access to vast quantities of iron ore, bauxite, and coal. Because the extraction logistics were straightforward, these specific deposits reliably fed the furnaces that built the domestic steel and thermal power sectors. Today, the global energy transition requires a completely different material base. The strategic priority has shifted to critical minerals. Recently, the Geological Survey of India located a massive deposit, 5.9 million tons of lithium. But this deposit is locked inside the Salal-Haimona area of the Riyasi district, a region of Jammu and Kashmir defined by steep, fractured terrain. On paper, this single find immediately placed India in the top 10 countries globally for total lithium reserves. Yet, when the government opened the Riyasi block for auction in November 2023, only 2 bids materialized. As a result, the auction had to be cancelled. Subsequent rounds failed to secure sufficient private capital to begin operations, leaving the lithium untouched. Geologic abundance in the ground hasn't translated to production because the financial models built for shallow surface mining are poorly suited for the high-risk, deep-seated reality of the Himalayas. Unlike coal or iron, critical minerals are often deep-seated, meaning the mineralized veins extend past the 200-meter mark below the surface. Because these structures are hidden deep within complex rock formations, the required drilling expenditure increases significantly with every meter of depth. The government recognized that state-owned mining entities could not absorb the high failure rate of this type of exploration on their own. To solve this, Parliament amended the MMDR Act in 2023, officially opening 6 out of 12 categorized atomic minerals to private sector participation. This list includes lithium, niobium, titanium, tantalum, beryllium, and zirconium. To pull private capital into the scanning phase, the state introduced a completely new statutory instrument, the exploration license. This license allows a company to prospect a massive 1,000 square kilometer block without the financial obligation to build a mine or extract the minerals themselves. Instead, the exploring entity hands over their data and receives a share of the auction premium if a different company ultimately mines their discovery. Decoupling exploration from extraction allows a specialized tier of geological firms to monetize discovery without having to fund the multi-billion-dollar infrastructure of a mine. Finding the minerals is only the first hurdle. At depth, mineral veins frequently cross the arbitrary grid lines that define assigned auction blocks. Historically, if a vein extended past a lease boundary, the operator had to stop extraction and wait for the government to auction the adjacent block. The 2025 statutory solution ensures continuity. Operators can now apply for automatic area extensions into neighboring blocks without a fresh auction. The limits are specific: a 10% extension for a standard mining lease and a 30% extension for a composite license. Similar flexibility is being applied to captive mining, where industrial plants, such as steel mills, mine their own raw materials. Prior to 2021, these captive operators could only sell 50%. By removing physical borders and regulatory sales caps, the state is attempting to force more liquidity into the domestic mineral market. Beyond primary extraction, the 2019 National Mineral Policy established a framework for zero-waste mining, which is now being applied to critical minerals. Critical minerals are frequently companion metals, bonded alongside primary ores like copper, zinc, or lead. When these primary ores are processed, the companion metals are typically separated and discarded into industrial waste streams. This includes tailings, the fine slurry of waste material that remains immediately after the primary ore is processed. It also includes smelter slag, the rock-like residue created during the extreme heat of the smelting process. Finally, purification leaves behind anode slime, insoluble impurities that settle at the bottom of refining cells. These sludges and slags contain high concentrations of selenium, cobalt, gallium, and silver, minerals that would otherwise require deep primary exploration. The new state policy categorizes 5 specific types of waste dumps as secondary reserves that must be processed for recovery. Targeting metallurgical waste allows India to extract critical minerals using existing industrial stockpiles, reducing the immediate reliance on high-risk primary exploration. De-risking exploration, removing sales caps, and mandating waste recovery creates a unified regulatory loop. But scaling this logistical pivot requires a centralized fund to manage research and offshore acquisitions. This is the role of the National Mineral Exploration and Development Trust, or NMET. The trust is funded through royalties. Operators pay their primary royalty to the state government, but a mandated share of that amount is diverted into the central NMET fund. That share was recently increased from 2% to 3%. This represents a 50% increase in the centralized capital available for mineral development. Crucially, the trust's mandate has been expanded. This capital is no longer legally restricted to India's domestic territory. The trust is now authorized to fund offshore exploration and overseas asset acquisitions to secure the supply chain. For example, India has moved into the Indian Ocean, signing an agreement with the International Seabed Authority to explore the Carlsberg Ridge. The primary target here is polymetallic sulfides, deep seabed deposits containing rich concentrations of essential critical minerals like copper, cobalt, nickel, and manganese. India has evolved past relying on geographical luck, building a financialized policy engine designed to secure mineral supplies through both industrial recovery and global projection.